Dipti, I'm Avinash Misar, and I am Director and CEO with Texport Syndicate India Limited,
Okay,
a company which is primarily into fashion and apparels for the last 40 years.
great.
And in the last 3 years, this company also ventured into technical textiles because for India, technical textile segment is one of the most important and growing segment. And if you look at our current fashion business, the growth is barely about 4 to 5% internationally. So
Mhm.
the only double-digit growth numbers which is possible in the textile industry today is possible in technical textiles.
Okay.
So looking at the opportunities in technical textile and the thought process at Texport was if we have to diversify and if we have to do something good in the industry and to add value to the entire ecosystem of textiles, we very well thought that we should go uh, for manufacturing of protective wear and getting into technical textile fabrics wherein we would coat the technical textiles and we'll as well do the lamination of the technical textiles. So basically the thought process was that we play in the zone where a normal textile is converted into technical textile through two major processes. One is of coating, one is of lamination. And once you convert them into protective textiles or any sort of performance textiles, you can also go for the end product of that. So I mean, if you look at our alignment in the industry, we have been into apparels for long. So for us, it was very, logical enough for us to get and extend ourselves into the protective wear business. And the protective wear business was in the area of fire retardant and various other hazards, giving solutions to various hazards like fire retardant. I did mention about that. Then into biological hazards like the current one, which we are talking about, the PPE.
Mhm.
So there are many solutions which we provide right from steel industry to cement industry to various industries. So we got into that business of protective wear 3 years back,
Mhm.
and this is where is the whole background about
So tell
various
me one
things.
thing, ever since this COVID-19 happened in India as well, there must be a huge boost in the demand on your end for PPE or
Ab-
the mask.
abs- Absolutely. I think this is, uh, I mean, in a way, a big change of life for all of us.
Hmm.
COVID-19 has posed a big challenge, and it's not really, can't say that, this is something anybody wanted in the country. But, they always say that, that there is an opportunity in any sort of
True.
these kind of situations and diversities. So the, the opportunity which came in was on the PPA side, and all of a sudden, if you look at the Indian segment,
Hmm.
medtex was always there. Medical
Obviously.
textile was always prevailing. Hospital people wearing the surgical gowns and the aprons and things like that. So that business was always there,
Hmm.
but it was not a real focused business. People never used to look at it that it is a must kind of a thing.
Hmm.
People used to wear it, people used to have it, and that was on a very basic low side of the end of the business, where simple SMS fabric,
Hmm.
simple spun bond non-woven fabric 50 GSM, which was used, and that fabric with no treatment, no lamination, nothing, that fabric was used in the hospitals for a regular purpose. A
Hmm.
regular purpose is like you don't get a blood stain, you don't get sort of an infected person. You have some
I
barrier to
think
that.
in the operation theaters, I think they use quite the quality type of products. I mean, the gowns that they wear, they must be anti-infectant or something like that.
Yeah, no, yeah. They used to serve a purpose, a purpose which is basic disinfectants against bacteria and against a lot of other things, which
Mhm.
is general. COVID by itself is a unique thing, We are faced with a virus which is pretty unique.
Hmm.
So that is where the whole thought process came about, a coverall, PPE coverall.
Hmm.
And coveralls were always there, gowns were always there, but they were not to an extent that it would be able to manage the kind of an infection, let's say what we are currently talking about, the viral infection.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there was no product which was designed for that. you know the biggest part, I mean, one of the discussions which we are going, which has been laid down to talk today, is also that what is that somebody should understand when we are talking about the business of PP. Generally, if you look at it in India, the this business has been taken forward by the converters. Who are the converters? The garmenting people. Because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, this is a fabric which is converted into a garment, and the garment which is used. Now, what is the difference here? If you look at normal garmenting and if you look at PP.
Hmm.
Now, currently the PP required for these kind of situation, for COVID situation, are very unique.
Hmm.
First thing, the most important thing from a garment aspect is that the comfort, free comfort part of it. So that is the designing of the garment, which I don't see that a big challenge. But
Okay.
the bigger challenge is the type of fabric.
Okay.
Because what is it for? What is it to save you from? So if you look at first responders, the health workers who are the first responders,
Hmm.
what is that they want? I mean, they want a barrier with the infection. A infected person, how would he infect you? A infected person would infect you through by his sneezing, or by the spit, or by any sort of, I would say, yeah, basically these are the two things.
Hmm.
So you get infected not by air, not by touching is one part of it, but largely it is by the sneeze and by the air, by the finer molecules in the air, and that's how you get the infection.
Hmm.
Having said that, what needs, because of that, is a barrier to it. Now, when you sneeze at a for a short span of few seconds, but the pressure is very high, and with that pressure, you are exposed. A person is exposed to this kind of infection.
True.
Now,
True.
what you need
Exactly.
is a barrier.
Hmm.
What you need is a barrier, and the barrier calls for fabric engineering.
Okay.
A normal fabric which we wear today is only a fabric. When
True.
you talk about a barrier fabric, we have to understand barrier against what.
Hmm.
So if you say barrier against normal air pollution, it's a smaller thing.
Hmm.
If you say barrier against bacteria, okay, it's an another level. When you say barrier against virus, is the third level, because you have to engineer the fabric for that. For that, you have to understand what is the size of bacteria, what is the size of the virus, how it is transported, what exactly is the pressure with which that the fabric has to perform under what pressure test. So these are all the fabric engineering part of it, which is very, very important.
So
And when you say,
as a company, you were making all these things already well in advance, or when this COVID-19
yeah,
happened, you started working on these aspects.
yeah, we started working on it only when the COVID-19 happened, because
Okay.
nobody knew about it.
Yes.
Nobody was about it. It was a big thing in front of the Ministry of Health. And there was actually, if you look back at it, in the month of February, when the alert happened,
Hmm.
the Ministry of Health got into the situation.
Hmm.
And then they say, how do we do it? We need something here. And that's where Ministry of Textile came into picture.
Hmm.
And then there was a joint work which happened,
Okay.
with BIS also coming in, as to what should be the standard and what is the challenge and how the challenge could be made. So there was a lot of pre-work which went into what kind of a fiber would be required, what kind of a structure or a laminate would be required,
Hmm.
how it would be engineered, who are the people who can engineer all over in India, who are the manufacturers who have the capabilities. So discuss with them and to talk to them and to get priority on those things, that this is something which is developed. So there was a lot of work in the month of February and March, wherein all these things were worked about
So
as
what
to
is the
what should
current
be.
scenario? I mean, what type of varieties you are making and what are the technical aspects to it?
Yeah, current scenario is what, if you look at it, the PPs were required in humongous numbers. It was not a small number. Now, when you look at the number and when you look at the capability, there was a matrix which one has to see. What is the capability of the industry and what is the metrics, how fast it is required. So the first metrics which came into picture is that the fabric should be good enough to pass ASTM 1670 blood penetration test. So
Hmm.
it was a simple thing. not a simple thing, so to say. Simple in the sense, the basic thing that the blood penetration test should pass. The
Okay.
blood should not pass. It should
Hmm.
be impermeable. So that was the first thing. And
Okay.
that's where the fabric development was done. And the
Okay.
second part of it has come is that this is only limited to the current scenario and the environment where you want a quick response to the tragic event which is there. So
Hmm.
quick response was taken. What is the next step of it? When you talk about blood penetration test, 1670 is the standard, but there is another standard 1671,
Hmm.
which is also talk about viral barrier test.
Okay. Hmm.
you know
True.
so
Hmm.
one way of looking at it is blood and fluid. The
Hmm.
second way of looking at it is the viral by itself. It is one step up.
Hmm.
Now if you look at World Health Organization standards, there are four different standards which one has to meet to say that you're complying with WHO. So when you look at WHO standards, out of the four compliances, the two major compliances are 1670 and 1671F.
Okay.
Now the 1671 part of it has become rudimentary. If you look at current scenario, nobody is talking about it, whether the fabric is passing 1671 also, which is the virus impermeability test,
Hmm.
that the virus should not pass through it. Viral should not pass through it. So these are the things which is now being worked upon. So the next step of evolving is that do we meet the WHO standard? Do we meet 1671? More than that, it is also very important to know this: these coveralls are worn for 10 hours, 12 hours at one go. This is worn over the normal uniform or whatever the health worker is wearing. So
Hmm.
it is very, at times it can become very uncomfortable if you don't have a proper breathability of that fabric.
Yeah,
Now
I
when you
saw the pictures in China also. People who had rashes on their faces and they were not able to breathe also very properly in those PPE kits. That was a very major cause of concern for the doctors and the
absolutely
nurses.
absolutely today also the cause of concern still holds, because when we start talking about fabrics,
Hmm.
and what was the stipulation by the government and the industry and by HLL,
Hmm.
that fabric should pass 1670. That's it.
Okay.
Now there are many fabrics which started passing that.
Oh.
There is yeah. Well, this is something which is very interesting to understand. If you look at the fabric which was initially made,
Hmm.
the first one which was developed, it was developed by Suryatex, and it was a tri-laminate fabric.
Hmm.
So it was an SMS, and then it was a PE in between, and then an SMS. So it was a tri-laminate fabric, and this tri-laminate fabric has a fantastic property. But as we went ahead, because the need was so high, one manufacturer could not take care of it. There were many manufacturers who came into it.
Hmm.
Now, while they came into it, they could succeed in 1670,
Hmm.
but they could not succeed in many other comfort areas.
Okay.
Currently, currently you also get a fabric which is a spun bond and laminated with P,
Hmm.
polyethylene.
Okay.
Now, this fabric also has passed the 1670 test, and some people are using this fabric also. Now,
Hmm.
look at this fabric. If you go back to this fabric and if you see, this fabric is used also for the packaging industry. Okay.
My God, that's quite a
Yeah.
challenge.
So, yeah, it's quite a challenge. It is
Yeah.
performing 1670. So, when you are talking about antivirus, yes, indeed it is performing. But
Hmm.
when you look at comfort, it will not give you the comfort. Never, you can't expect that comfort.
Hmm.
Now, the international standard talks about comfort in a bigger way. It
Okay.
talks about breathability of the fabric,
Right.
you know, and that is where the whole technical textile understanding of technical textile comes into a bigger zone. A simple zone is just 1670. A
Hmm.
bigger zone is, do you give breathability? Why it becomes a bigger zone? Because breathability is two things. It one is you want it to be permeable to air, because you want a garment which will allow air to come in so that you feel comfortable. So that is
Absolutely
breathable.
right.
But
Correct.
while it is allowing air, it should not allow blood, it
Or
should
the
not
virus.
allow fluid,
Hmm.
or it should not allow virus or bacteria.
Hmm.
So the engineering part of it, of the fabric, and the process part of it becomes further more difficult
True. Okay.
and challenging. It is not only difficult and challenging, it is a technology. I mean, some people can do it, some people cannot do it.
Of course, it
You
is
know,
all about the
it's
process.
yeah, yeah. One has to know about the process, one
True.
has to know the chemistry behind it, and
Hmm.
all that thing. So currently, if you look at the requirements what All India Institute of Medical Sciences, in
Hmm.
their current tender, which they have stipulated, it's fantastic. They have gone on record to say we need a breathable fabric,
Okay.
and they are not compromising on any other fabric. I wouldn't say that earlier also was a compromise. That would be wrong for me to say. Earlier was not a compromise. Earlier was a need, an urgent need of the medical health professional to save themselves against a virus, though it is bit uncomfortable or uncomfortable, largely uncomfortable, but it is doing serving the purpose.
Hmm.
So that way it served the purpose. But the second part of it is internationally, it has to be a breathable fabric.
It has.
And that's where the whole thing has started now with AIIMS tender, which is
Hmm.
just going to get closed on 1st of June. And
Okay.
people are talking about breathable fabric. And when you talk about breathable fabric, then comes the technology of coating. Either you're going to make a woven breathable fabric, woven
Hmm.
in the sense you will have a polyester fabric,
Okay.
okay, the
Right.
one which we use commonly,
Hmm.
polyester for our top shirts or whatever. That polyester fabric to be coated with a polyurethane coating in a particular chemistry by which water or fluid or any sort of blood will not get inside, virus will not get inside, but air permeability will be there. So this is something which is very, very unique.
Hmm.
Not that it is not available, not that the technology is not there. Many big companies have it and they use this technology, and it is very well there. So
Okay.
not that we are running short of it. It is just that it needs. When you look into the pricing part of it,
Hmm.
yes, the pricing part of it just goes double.
Oh,
You know,
of course,
when you
because of
took
the
only
process
on the
involved.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But I would not say double as a coverall price. I would say fabric price going more by 80%.
Hmm.
Almost double.
How many companies in India are capable of producing this type of fabric? I mean, or whoever is being approved by Citra is making the same quality, or there is difference in the qualities that they're making?
No, now what will happen is, Citra is only the basic thing 1670.
Okay.
It doesn't talk about breathability. 1670 as a standard doesn't talk about breathability.
So that means
Now
there's
that,
very few companies who are complying to the 1671 now.
yeah, 1671 is also 1670, 1671 is all about
Terminal.
biological.
Okay, biological.
It's
But
all
building
about
the picture
biological.
fabric is
Yeah,
not available.
yeah. 1670 talks about blood penetration.
Hmm.
1670 talks about viral penetration.
Right.
So it is only biological. When
Okay.
you talk about breathability, that's a different test, you
True.
know.
Hmm.
So now that has also come into picture. So you have to give what kind of a breathability it is there,
Hmm.
what level of breathability. There is a standard for there also.
Okay.
So a breathability standard will also come into picture, and it has already come into picture.
Hmm.
So that is where is the next step which has happened, and this can come through coating, and it can also. There are two kind of materials. One is the non-woven fabric, which is there, which
Hmm.
we call it as that blue fabric which you see or white fabric which you see currently, non-woven fabric, which is 50 GSM to 60 GSM fabric, that can be laminated by a microporous film, a very fine film,
Hmm.
which is also known as a TPU film. Now, this fine film, when you laminate, it gives you a breathability also, and it stops it against the blood penetration also.
Hmm. Okay.
So there is one non-woven laminated possibility which is there.
Right.
The other is a woven coated possibility. Coating possibility is there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Woven coating possibility also has an advantage that you can use it, reuse it, and probably you can reuse it for 10 wash. It will have
Okay.
its property for 10 wash.
It's a
So you
durable
will have,
product.
yeah, so you'll have a coverall which could be washed for 10 times.
Hmm.
That means it can give, one coverall can serve for 10 times.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so reusable also, so breathable and reusable coverall.
Okay.
So this is something which is the next thing which is there in terms of a lot of work has been done. lot of big companies are into that space of fabric development.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have also got into the fabric development. We are also submitting the samples to AIIMS. We have rather already submitted the samples.
Okay.
And yeah, that is a lot of work which a lot of people are doing. The end story of it is that once the fabric is there in place, then all the garmentiers can make a play.
True.
The only thing is the garmentiers have to understand that fabric, they have to stitch it well, and the most important part of it is seam sealing. Now seam sealing also has been one of the gray areas. You the condition of seam sealing was that you seam seal the garment wherever, because when you stitch a garment, the stitches will induce holes in the garment,
True.
so you have to seal them. So you have to seal them with a tape. Now when you seam seal them, you can do it in two ways. You can do with manual pressure sensitive tapes,
Mm.
and you can do it with machine
Machine. Hot
hot
steam.
air.
Yeah, hot air.
Hot air process.
Hmm.
Now both the process have passed Citra, because blood penetration test is only one thing. So both the processes pass Citra. So there has been no concern in the past. But as you move ahead, and when you talk about reusable garment, and
Hmm.
when you talk about further greater reliability,
Okay.
then there is nothing there. Then there is nothing like machine seam sealing.
Acha.
Hot
Okay.
air machine. Yeah, there is nothing to beat that. And hot air seam sealing is the most important thing.
Hmm.
So if you look at the current tender of AIIMS, you will see very specifically noted over there that it has to be machine heat seam sealed. It cannot be manual. They have written clearly, manual will not be accepted.
Manual
So
not.
the point is, the way we are moving ahead in the PPE, as we are moving ahead in the PPE, we are getting tighter. We are getting closer to the international
More
standards.
stringent
So
in
what
terms
is
of quality norms.
absolutely? So breathability and seam sealing, these
Hmm.
are the two major things that we are pushing ourselves into the zone where we would be almost at the level of WHO. So
Okay.
that is one area where that migration is happening, and happening for good. And that is what you will see, that in future also things would go in that direction. So one of the most important things for garmentiers is to understand this. Unfortunately, garmenting people don't understand the technicality of the fabric when it comes to protection. When you talk about normal garments, it's all about abrasion, it's all about washing, color to be stable, dyeing to be stable. These are the things. But when you're talking with people's life, it is bit different. It is a
Absolutely.
technology,
We
it
have
is
to
a
be more
standard.
questions.
You have to be more understanding, you have to go deeper.
Hmm.
The first thing is to know about it. If you know about it, then you are going to work on it. So
Hmm.
I believe that that area was pretty gray to all the general apparel manufacturers who got into this. It
Hmm.
was a pretty gray area for them. They knew that this is what it is, but they do not know in depth. So these are the things which will now come out, and it's going to be in depth.
So when we
And
talk about the breathability of the fabric, which is now, according to you, being soon added as a norm in all the PPE kits being manufactured. So will it be added as a norm in Citra also? How much in how much time? Because we are already seeing that there is a list of fabric manufacturers on the Citra website who are making the norm, the fabric as per the norms of Citra. So how soon we expect the change to come?
I think, let me first be very specific. This is a very generic thing. Citra is only an inspection agency. And Citra is an inspection agency which tells you, we have to go and tell Citra that I want to be tested for so and so. My product, I want to be tested for so and so. So I go to Citra and say, this is my fabric. I want it to be tested for 1670. They open up the files. They look at the standard. They test it and give it to me.
No, but they
So
have
there is
now
nothing
they
that,
have been the authority of giving the approval for the fabrics and the PP
no,
mark.
there are eight different testing centers who are the authority. There is a DRDO which can
DRDO.
do. There
Yeah.
is an IMAPS who can do. There is an ordnance factory which can give. So
Okay.
there are 8 to 10 agencies who can give you a certificate. And
But it
if you
depends
want,
who is asking for breathability. Like you have just mentioned about aims. So
yeah, that is about customer. You
custom.
know,
Yeah.
The 1670 was also the customer defined. Who
Hmm.
was the customer then? The customer was Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health.
So
Okay.
they said blood penetration test, it should pass. So
Hmm.
they defined that.
Right.
Okay. It was supported by Ministry of Textiles that for 1670, what kind of fabric to be generated and
Hmm.
who are the people who will generate and how it has to be controlled by a UCC code, by a CITRA certification.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
wanted to fix up the certifying agency. There
Right.
could be 10, but they said that let it be with 5 or 7 or 8 of them.
Hmm.
Now, if you want to get it tested for any international standard, you can go to other private agencies also. You have ITS, you have SGS, you have
Hmm.
many testing
You
agencies.
basically mean to say that the quality, the norms in this PPE is actually now getting larger. The requirements and the standards are going up, and we need to adhere
Absolutely,
to those standards, right?
yeah. And me to say, it is not stopping here. I mean, I'm sure you have been you have been noting that people are talking about antiviral treatment now
Absolutely.
by quoting.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
nobody, now the technology is all about talking about that it is not about stopping the virus in the fabric. It is
Hmm.
talking about once the virus gets in touch with the fabric, the virus will get,
Out.
you know, uh,
Yes.
out.
It wipes
I mean,
away.
it will be dead.
Because
Yeah,
I've
the
heard about
virus will
bed
be
sheets.
disabled or dead. What PP basically, PP. When you look at PP, there are many types of PP,
Hmm.
but the current one, what we are talking about, is the spun bond, the
Hmm.
non-woven PP. On the spun bond area, under that classification,
Hmm.
there is a ban.
Yes.
Okay, so and that is because that it was required in humongous quantity within the country.
Hmm.
The government was also not sure, people were not sure. So the first priority was for the Indian diaspora, and we do not suffer. So that was the first priority. I guess with all the due good intents, that was done, and I think that export will open up. But if one wants to do export with normal fabric, the export is still possible. I
Hmm.
mean, like if you look at mask today,
Hmm.
mask exports with cotton and silk fabrics is allowed. There's no issues. It has been
Hmm.
allowed very recently.
Hmm. 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 So it is all
So
about how what are the specifications of every company. Now coming on to your company, like one of the products that you have rightly mentioned. So what are the right now? What is the product basket that you are making for this medical textiles?
see, currently we are into all three kinds of coveralls. We are
Okay.
talking about one single-use coverall,
Okay.
which is the SMS fabric, which we have been talking about. That is the non-woven fabric, and that is a single-use coverall, but with a better kind of a laminate, tri-laminate. So
Hmm.
that is the product which we are there into, which is something which is required and which is required in good quantities, and that is what has been stipulated also by the government agencies. So that is one segment where we are supplying to HLL, which goes into the health system, and that is one part of it. The
Hmm.
second part of it is we are with the coveralls, which are breathable coveralls. Now
Okay.
in breathable, we have both the varieties. One is the non-woven, which is again SMS, but with a very fantastic lamination of a film, which gives a breathable property and as well as sustains the blood penetration test.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the and the third one is the what we spoke about earlier was the woven coverall, which is a coated coverall, which
Hmm.
can also be reusable at least 10 to 15 times. So these are the three categories we are into there. Then
Okay.
we are into masks, and we are also into PPE kits. So PPE kits is something which is handy for most of the private hospitals and things like that, where they are getting one coverall, they get two masks with it,
Hmm.
they get a nitrile glove with it, they get the eye protection glasses with it.
Hmm.
So it is, and one disposable bag. So the whole kit is made in such a way that it can be used by a health worker.
Hmm.
It goes as a pack. They
Hmm.
open the pack, they use it, and once the use is done, they have a disposable bag also. They
Hmm.
put it in the disposable bag and they
Hmm.
give it for incineration or whatever is the disposal which a hospital is doing.
But
So
I
PPE
want
kit
to, yeah, I want to ask you one thing very specific here. That
are packed up. Lot of Unfortunately, lot of traders have come into play.
hmm.
And when traders come into play, then they get it made from anywhere and from any kind of fabric.
Mm.
Forget about Citra.
Mm.
So the the problem is that in the trading community, you will find somebody selling it for 300 rupees, 400 rupees. It is just a simple SMS fabric, 40 GSM, 50 GSM, picked up at 15 rupees per garment
Mm.
manufacturing
Right.
price
Right.
or fabric price, and they
And
are
then
selling
see.
it for 200. Now
True.
that is the unfortunate part. But
Mm.
if you look at very specific hospitals,
Mm.
the administration and the supply chain has been quite very effectively understanding of this. Not only that, the
Mm.
medical workers are understanding this.
Mm.
The health professionals are understanding this. So when a coverall goes, they are now basically talking, is it certified 1670?
Mm.
So the requirement of 1670 and the bacterial filtration efficiency
Mm.
in the medical health professional, it is already there. They know about it. Okay. And that is what is the certification you have to provide with it.
Mm.
So the like if you look at our kit also, PPE kit,
Mm.
we are guaranteeing that we are writing over there, we are putting over the specs over there, and we are giving a full declaration over there that it meets so and so standards.
Mm.
Like 1670, it meets the standards for the mask also, which are some ISO standards. So those also we stipulate and we write on that. So
Okay.
one has to, from a buying perspective, and people buying these kind of things, they would also have to look at it, that are they buying the right thing. I mean, it has been so well talked about,
True.
thanks to you people, and people who are there in the media industry. Everyone has taken it up. Everyone has taken a cause of it. Everyone's keep talking about PP. So the understanding is very good. I feel that the understanding is very good in terms of the health professionals. So the basic requirements, I'm sure, the PPE kits which are going, they would stand for it. And one thing for sure, a PPE kit cannot stand a price below 500 rupees,
Okay.
cannot.
So that is
It is
something
not,
that not as per the quality. If something is
yeah,
selling or is
yeah,
being
I mean,
quoted that way.
yeah. If somebody is going down, I know it is not very political statement or right statement, but still, because the subject is something like that,
Hmm.
I would still like to, very cautiously, I would still like to say, one should think that what you will get at that kind of prices,
It's a
cannot
big
be the same thing,
responsibility.
cannot be the same thing. We are there in the industry. We understand at this point in time, a lot of people in the industry, a lot of large apparel manufacturers like us have taken this as a cause. Somewhere the professionals who are working, they also take a pride that, we are not just giving a coverall, we are giving a safety.
Hmm.
We are giving a safety to a health professional
It's a
who is
big
working for some of
responsibility.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There is a sense of responsibility. I
Hmm.
mean, if you even go and talk to a supervisor level person in a
Hmm.
factory, he knows what he is doing, and he carries the pride of that, and he wants to do it well. So I think people are good. Professionals are aware about it.
Hmm.
So that kind of a mindset is there. PP
True.
has
True.
gotten that mindset. I think this is, I mean, hats off all over India.
Hmm.
How much is being produced on daily basis, what is the supply chain, where the fabric is coming from. The nodal officer can sniff and know every bit of it.
Very nice.
So if you're honestly, if you're asking me, when you're looking at the supply chain is fantastically controlled.
So it
And
is very much organized.
yeah, and you would be surprised that the manufacturers had to give a kind of a affidavit, and the last line of the affidavit said very clearly that if it is found that some mischief has been there, these are not the right words, but the words say that if something is wrong, there will be a criminal action.
See,
There will
that
be
is
not
that,
a,
that should be the norm because the people who are wearing it ultimately, whether it's a doctor, it's a nurse, or anybody who is going to test, they're
absolutely,
wearing it with the confidence that we are not going to get affected by the
absolutely.
virus. No,
So,
they're
so the
playing with their lives.
absolutely, the Ministry of Textiles had taken a very strong statement. In one of the meetings with the secretary, on the video conferencing, there were some people who were very uneasy with that. They said, how can you treat us as criminal? He said, there is no question of treating as criminal. We are just saying that if anything goes wrong, it amounts to criminal
Offense.
this thing. Yeah. So, very strongly held, mechanism. I
Hmm.
mean, I have been
That
very
is
vocal about it.
the sensitive part comes, because they understand that it's a
Absolutely.
big responsibility, and it is not about making money or
It's,
just recovering your losses. It is about a
it's,
big
yeah,
responsibility.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is like 4 lakh pieces on a day today, 4 to
Yes,
5 lakh pieces on a day.
4.5 lakh
We are
pieces.
manufacturing, we have become the second largest manufacturers in the world. I mean,
Hmm.
you imagine that this has happened in 3 months of time, barely
Not
two and
even
a half months
complete
of
3 months,
time.
I would say. Yeah, not even completely
Yeah,
3 months. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
Hats off
I
to our
mean,
industry.
hats off. Hats off to industry, hats off to the policymakers,
Yeah.
hats off to the back end people who really thought about it, who
Hmm.
structured it.
Hmm.
Amazing, amazing work, amazing work.
So, with that, I'll sum up my discussion for today. But I would like to have just 2, 3 points from you to conclude that if I am a company into PPE making or into mask making, what message or what things of caution you would like me to follow?
I must tell very openly that yes, be in the PPE zone, because this PPE zone is not going to end. Today, the health worker has been exposed to use of coverall.
Hmm.
Today, the health worker knows in India that this coverall is important for him or her.
Hmm.
This market will not go. If we think that only for COVID people will wear and after that they will not wear, I don't think that our health industry is so short sighted that they will keep themselves vulnerable to the further exposures.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this kind of gear, PP gear, is going to be there in the country.
Right.
The requirements which we have seen in the last couple of months, the requirements would be at that level. So whatever production has been done will have to continue to be at that level. The only thing which I will say at this point in time, that it will migrate to a next higher level of requirements. And that's where everybody who is there, they are needed in the market.
Hmm.
They are needed in the value chain. The only thing they should do is put professional people of their teams to study deeply on the subject matter,
Hmm.
to create systems inside the manufacturing where all these things are tested, controlled, and there is a backtracking. We should be able to tell which lot of supplies of PPE we are making,
Hmm.
what is the code number of that. We should be able to tell from which fabric it was taken. We should be able to tell this fabric has come from which manufacturer on what date, and the manufacturer should be able to tell that on what date did I manufacture, what was the processes I used. So the backtracking mechanism, like what you see in most of the automotive industry,
Hmm.
high-end industry, people
Absolutely.
have to understand that this is a high-end industry which requires a very good quality control of not of the end product, control of the entire process.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we have to create a reliable system, because we can't expose anybody outside. We can't give a garment which gets exposed outside.
Hmm.
When I'm giving a fashion shirt, okay, I'm bothered about quality, but I'm not so sensitive. When I'm making a child garment, I'm still sensitive that it should not hurt a child.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Hmm.
similarly, when you talk about PPE, that intent should be clear, that knowledge and content should be built in the system, and the quality mechanism should be built into that system. Once you build the quality mechanism, you'll come closer to the processes.
Mm. So there is nothing wrong in capitalizing and cashing on the opportunity that is
Not,
coming our way, but it should be done with complete responsibility, with adhering to all the
absolutely. This
norms,
is
being very cautious about the products that you're buying in terms of the raw materials, the fabrics, and getting into deep details about how it is being made and the intricacies of the fabric as well.
absolutely. Just to keep it in mind that they are now not only a fashion provider,
Mm.
they are currently they are a solution provider.
Solution
They
provider.
are people who are going to take responsibility of someone's life,
Hmm.
and that's a different zone. I'm talking about mindset. I'm talking about mindset with that heart
Hmm.
and with that technology. They
Hmm.
have to accept that also, that there is a technology behind it, and
Right.
they need to understand that. So that is very important, ma'am.
Great.
Very
Thank you
important.
so much, Avinashi. I think you have really enlightened us on the real requirements of PPE and this industry, and how the people who are already into the manufacturing of this product should be aware of the facts and the norms, and maybe updated also about the new things that is coming their way. So I think we will have to conduct another session for the same, maybe another week or
Thank you.
so, and because
And then,
regular updation and regular information is what is the key today. So,
sure,
on that
sure.
note, I will end this discussion, but will wish from the bottom of my heart that you, your family, always remain safe and keep
Same to you.
producing the protective equipment that is required for our society.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for having me with you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure
Pleasure.
having you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm ending this
Thanks.
call now. Okay.
Sure.